Yes, welcome. This is the Little Feat Radio Show. Today we have a special guest with us, Mr. Scott Sharrard, the vocalist and guitarist with Little Feat, one of two guitarists with Fred Tackett. Scott, welcome. So glad you could join us today.
Thanks for having me back, guys.
Scott, I do want to thank you for joining us today. I want to note this is the third time that you've been on the Little Feat Radio Show. Unfortunately, if you remember the first time, I forgot to press the record button.
It's my favorite episode.
And that's the one where you were actually live talking with the fans, and it was, oh my goodness. But I know how busy it is for you these days, being out on the Waiting for Columbus tour. And of course, the last time we spoke with you was before the start of the By Request tour. And I don't think you had at that time actually played in the same room with Tony and the rest of the guys. So that would have been like in September or something like that, because the By Request tour started in November. And of course, since then, you went to Jamaica. You've had the spring leg, let's call it that, of the Waiting for Columbus tour. You've recorded a special for PBS. So happy that I was there to witness that, and had a nice little chat with Charlie Martinez, who was going kind of crazy with the PBS people at the time. He was much more relaxed when I saw you in Asheville. So that was very cool. And of course, when the summer leg starts up on July 21st, you're going to be starting out in the Midwest, first in Cincinnati, Ohio on July 21st. Nashville, Indiana, Chesterfield, Missouri. My goodness, 3 Missouri shows. Chesterfield, which I think is St. Louis, Springfield, and Kansas City. And then you're heading out to Englewood, Colorado, which is out by Denver, Aspen, and then Sandy, Utah, and all points west. And of course, all of those dates are on littlefeat.net, and many of them are carried by Ticketmaster. Some are on AXS, and some are, I know the show you got coming up in September in Charlotte is on a ticket platform I'd never heard of before, but we have tickets for that. So there you go.
Yeah, and we're also on that September run also. It's worth mentioning that we're doing the East Coast again, the Northeast, I should be more specific. So we're hitting the Capitol Theater, UPAC in Kingston, New York. So we're going to be hitting more of those. Those are like my local gigs, because I live in Manhattan. I live in Harlem specifically, but it's probably worth mentioning.
Speaking of local gigs, I know you've been on a short break from Little Feat, and I see you've been doing something called Eldorado Slim. Could you maybe tell us a little bit about that project? I looked at a couple of the videos. I saw one, I think it was for In Memory of Elizabeth Reed and Let the Music Take Your Mind, which I understand was the Grant Green arrangement. Tell us a little bit about that project. And I know you got a show, is it tomorrow up in New Hampshire?
Yeah, we're playing at Jimmy's in Portsmouth, New Hampshire tomorrow, which is a really beautiful nightclub. It only holds about 300 people, but Herbie Hancock just played there, Mavis Staples recently, so they've got a great chef who's like a New Orleans chef, so it's a great hang, and it's owned and run by some good friends of mine. But yeah, Eldorado Slim, obviously, kind of a tongue-in-cheek reference. This is perfect for your audience. I'm a lifelong Little Feat fan, so when I discovered that instrumental it was on the Warner's box set when that came out. I started to realize, with Little Feat, the bag just goes deeper and deeper and deeper as you get into it. And I realized that not only were they, one of the great rock and roll bands, but they're also one of the great, funk, jazz fusion bands of that era, in terms of what they were pursuing. And that song, I've been asking the guys. Apparently, they haven't played it live since the 70s. But it's something they used to warm up with a lot in the 70s, and you can also find different versions of it on YouTube. And we are playing that song with the band, which I thought was kind of a treat. And Tony Leone, my partner who joined up with Little Feat when we came back, is on drums with Eldorado Slim too. So the tongue-in-cheek reference is, it's what Tony and I are doing when we're not working with Little Feat.
Very good. So Little Feat fans that have heard you sing, I got to tell you that get a lot of compliments on what a great vocalist you are with the band. So just to warn them, it's an instrumental gig with Eldorado Slim, right?
Yeah, I mean, my conceit with that is I did, about right before I joined Little Feat, I did about 4 years of my solo band, doing hundreds of gigs every year, playing my songs, because I am a singer-songwriter mostly. With Little Feat, when I realized that I was going to be one of the lead vocalists in the band and going into what we'll hopefully talk about more today is some previews of what we're going to do next year is I'm trying to keep my singing and songwriting in the Little Feat camp. Like, I'm not doing that outside of the band. And with Eldorado Slim, I'm purposely doing something where I'm not involving my singing and songwriting because I want all of that to exist as part of Little Feat. I don't want it to exist outside of it at this time in my career. I really want to put all my energy because with Little Feat, I really believe that the singing, whoever is doing it, and the songwriting, whoever is doing it, whether it's me or Bill or Sam or Tony or Fred. We haven't had Kenny front a song yet, but you never know. But whoever any of us is that's doing the writing and singing, I mean, I feel like my approach right now is I've had such a long career doing that I just want all that energy to go into Little Feat for the time being.
Do you know what Kenny sings best?
I've only heard him sing The Fan.
Kenny sings the theme songs to all the 50s and 60s TV shows.
I've caught him doing that a couple times.
He knows every word. He sings them very well.
Well, he says that's how he learns songs, is by learning all the lyrics. Because, my goodness, some of those Little Feat arrangements are quite complex.
I'll tell you something. If you don't know the lyrics to the songs in this band, there are many songs where you could easily get extremely lost because a song like Strawberry Flats or Rock and Roll Doctor, for example, they're through composed. They're always the same length, and they're all dependent on the lyrical structure, and the musical structure is constantly changing and shifting. And these songs were built by the band with Lowell in such a way that they're almost like booby-trapped. and seriously, like, I've tried to play this music, and I am extremely blessed in my life with music and musicians. Like, when I go out and try to play one Little Feat song with a thrown together band, it's like some of the best musicians around. And I've noticed that they can't even seem to learn the parts on the simplest songs not because they can't, it's because they didn't, because they were so fooled by how catchy and simple and great the song is that they think if I do a generic thing on an A7 chord, it's still going to be Dixie Chicken. That's not the case at all. If you don't have every syncopation in the line lined up to where it fits with the vocal, you're not playing the song anymore. And it is a hallmark of all the great bands, right? Because you could attribute this also to the music of Duke Ellington or Charles Mingus. You could attribute it even to the music of Led Zeppelin or the band. I mean, there's songs, and I got to work a bit in my life in the studio and live with Levon Helm. And granted, at that point in his career, there was more kind of open blues to what they were doing. But when it comes to playing a band song, most of them are built in kind of a similar way. Not as complex as Little Feat rhythmically, perhaps, but definitely in terms of, like I was saying, the songs are kind of booby-trapped.
Did you have any of that when you were playing with Gregg Allman?
Gregg's stuff was a little bit more straightforward. A song like some of the Allman Brothers band stuff would be like that. A song like Hot Lana we used to play.
Yep.
That's a song where really you've got to know all the sections. And in fact, you don't even have a thing where everyone plays the same amount of solos. And it would all have to happen exactly. Gregg would play the same organ solo every night. Like, it was through composed for 5 minutes. Okay. So that is an approach to rock and roll, jamming, songwriting, whatever it may be. There were a few Gregg compositions that followed that. But Gregg, I would like to say, was a little bit more when we would do the Gregg Allman Band. Even though he treated it as a band, and we all had input, and I was the musical director, and I wrote songs and produced and arranged the stuff with him, he was definitely the singer-songwriter of the band. So there were elements of the gig where you would go from a vibe that was like a Bobby Bland band approach to a Jackson Browne approach to a Little Feat approach. I mean, we were all obsessed with Little Feat. I was just joking with the guys on the bus the other day. Greg came up and we were all telling stories, and I said, you know, after Dwayne passed away, I feel like Greg would have been way more at home in Little Feat than in the Allman Brothers Band. Because we used to listen to Little Feat all the time. And he was obsessed with the rhythmic complexity and the songwriting and how it was all put together. And there are certain Gregg Allman songs like Don't Keep Me Wonderin', which was directly inspired by Little Feat. Listen to Don't Keep Me Wonderin', then go listen to like Down the Road or one of those. You know, it's kind of like that whole tempo and feel that Little Feat lives in, with Two Trains as another one. That's like Gregg's breakfast cereal, was that kind of music.
Excellent.
You know, that medium funk storytelling shit, that was what Gregg was all about.
Well, it really is amazing how impactful the music of Little Feat has been and continues to be. And I do want to thank you for diving in. I know I looked at some of your TikTok videos talking about how Lowell did his tuning on the high E, and I'm thinking, all right, I'll give it a try. And it's like, I would never have tried something like that because it just made my Martin the neck. I could see it was the tension on it. It was crazy. So thank you for that.
Well, I mean, you're welcome, but thank Lowell for that. I mean, you know, he's the madman who went and tuned that string up in the first place. He probably took a few in the face from his popping. But, you know, that's what Lowell used to do. And you guys, I'm sure you've had everyone tell the stories about how, I mean, Lowell was as influenced by world music and jazz and progressive music of that time as he was by rock and roll or blues, and he took that into his producing and arranging and writing style. I mean, Lowell was one of the first samplers. He was in that first movement of people who were taking tapes and cutting them up, putting them back together. Miles Davis was doing it with Teo Macero at the same time. I'm sure he heard about it happening, but we would never have had that crazy ass arrangement on Rock and Roll Doctor if he hadn't spliced tapes. Him tuning that high E up to a G on the second album, on Sailing Shoes, I'm imagining is when that came in the picture. Because that was the first time I heard the tuning on a recording that I know of. That's just another one of those things where no one else would have thought to do that.
Once again, thank you for doing that. Of course, you're also on social media. I know, obviously, we're on YouTube. Beat will be on YouTube with this, and of course Facebook. One also that has been, there's a Little Feat group that discuss on Reddit, and I asked the people there, I said, I'm going to have Scott Sharrard on the show. Do you have any questions you want to ask him? And some of them are really good, and some of them were out of left field. But I want to ask you this left field one. Of course, Dixie Chicken has the song, I've seen the bright lights of Memphis and the Commodore Hotel. And nobody's actually figured out that I don't think there's a Commodore Hotel in Memphis. So here's the question. Do you know which is the real Commodore Hotel?
I mean, you might have to ask, you know, is Martin Kibbe still alive? I mean, I don't know. You know, I have a lot of friends in Memphis. I could look into that. I don't think it matters.
Okay.
I mean, there's a Commodore Hotel now. I think the mythology is more important than the facts when it comes to songs.
Very good. Well, another question they asked was, I know you've been playing I'm going to get into the gearhead mode right now. Hope you don't mind.
Uh-oh.
The orange.
Put a warning at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, gearhead mode. Look out. So
all guitar players can now leave the room.
No. I'm going to share just a picture with you just a second here. So here's a picture. I've circled this little box. What is that little box?
Well, you mentioned Charlie Martinez already. He does front of house for us. Charlie and I have been producing records together for 22 years. He produced and engineered all my albums, and we're best friends. And he thinks I'm too loud on stage. So when I was in Macon, Georgia, doing a Allman tribute family event for the GABA Association, which supports music education in the state of Georgia in public schools. It's a great cause. I was playing at the Opera House there, and there was a gentleman who opened for me who was making these wooden barriers to put in front of loud amplifiers. And he loaned it to me for the show. He doesn't make them anymore, and I got one of the last ones. And it's got foam on the other side. It even has a microphone clip where you can put a microphone to mic your amp. And in the front, I think it's just pine. And if you've seen guitar players who are very loud, including myself with Gregg Allman, we've all put plexiglass. The problem with plexiglass, well, you can see the amplifier, but the problem with plexiglass is that the reverberation on stage sounds like garbage. It's like your guitar is banging up against glass or plastic or plexiglass. So the wood and the foam absorbs the sound, and it doesn't mess with the stage sound at all. And it blocks what's hitting Charlie straight in the eyeballs, because my amplifiers are middle of the stage. Just like when I was with Gregg Allman, I was at the center stage. With Little Feat, I'm at the center stage. And center stage is the position where the amplifier hits the engineer right in the face.
Okay.
Behind that barrier is a 1966 Fender Vibro-X Reverb with the original speakers. And that is with two 10 inches. That's the main sound you're hearing through the PA.
Okay, so it's not the orange amp.
The orange amp has a master volume circuit. It's an AD30, which is a 30-watt head that was designed and popularized by Jimmy Page. That head has a master volume that's pretty incredible, where you can drive the amplifier, but have the amplifier run very quiet without affecting the tone. So that amplifier we adjust to Charlie's comfort. The old 1966 Vibro-X doesn't have any bells and whistles. So you got to crank it up, and it's just got to fly. That's why that's got the sound barrier. However, all that said, guys, changing my amplifier setup for the next tour. So this is, this heard here first on Little Feat Radio. If anyone's heard of the company, the boutique amplifier company, Two Rock, Bill Kennard, who is the builder, is a lifelong Little Feat fan who would absolutely love this show, and I'm going to turn him on to it. And he was very excited to have an amplifier out with Little Feat. He designs amplifiers, a variety of amplifiers, but his flagship is a Dumble, 100-watt Dumble, which was Lowell's amplifier. So he sent me a 100-watt Dumble with two 12s.
Whoa.
Copy, his version of it. It's called the Custom Reverb Signature. And they made some changes to it in the last few years, where it's got two different EQ structures that are very, 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 very similar to a couple different Dumbles you could get back in the day. So it's in our locker in Nashville, and I'll be working on it with Bruce Pearson, our tech, when I get there for rehearsals. And it has a 100-watt or 50-watt choice, and it's a vertical cabinet. And probably what you're going to see on the next tour, if everything works out, is that wood barrier will be covering up the bottom half. And I think it's going to be the best of all worlds. You'll see the head popping up over the top. I'll have one speaker that pops up over the top I can hear. The bottom speaker that hits Charlie will be blocked.
Excellent. Sounds like a good plan.
That's the next approach.
Yeah, very good. Well, thanks for going into that. Now, to get back to the non-guitar players for just a second.
Yeah. All right, everybody come back in the room who's not a guitar player.
Another question, maybe this is the Eldorado Slim stuff, but one of the questions from Reddit was, what are you listening now to for fun?
Well, I got to be honest with you. I learned a quote from Richie Hayward when I joined this band. One time, Richie, when he was being interviewed, he was asked, what new rock and roll albums or what rock music are you into, or blues music or whatever? And he said, music, I push it, I don't use it. So I don't listen to a whole lot of the music I play at home. I listen to a ton of, all the time I listen to music from other cultures. So I listen to tons of roots rock, reggae, and dub. Every morning I listen to Indian music. Indian classical, Indian spiritual music. That's how I start almost every day. Pakistani music, Pakistani singing, Ali Akbar Khan. Of the Indian music, I've been really centered on the slide guitar music, which I discovered Vishwa Mohan Bhatt, who did the great records with Rai Cooder, and then I got into his stuff, and then Debashish Bhattacharya is another guy. They play lap steel, acoustic Indian music, traditional Indian music. So I've been starting almost every day with that stuff. I'm also really into gamelan music, traditional music from the Philippines. This is stuff that guys like Debussy used to check out, and Miles Davis used to check that stuff out. It's kind of atonal, but very trancey. And then my other go-to is every night, Monday through Friday, at 8 p.m., there's a show on WWOZ, which I stream on my phone now out of New Orleans, that is the most hip rhythm and blues soul classic show I've ever heard. And then on Saturdays on WWOZ from New Orleans, I stream starting in the afternoon. I like to go up. My mother-in-law has a house up in upstate New York, near Woodstock, and I'll go out and I'll smoke a pork shoulder on my barbecue smoker, and before dinner at about 3 o'clock I'll put on, they have a world music show, and it goes right into the dance party, Saturday night dance party on WWOZ. And I tell you what, they play all the stuff from the 70s. Gap Band, Commodores, Confunction. They play all this deep New Orleans stuff like the Gators, and then they'll play like Toussaint, the Meters, and all that, and it's just like the most feel-good 2 or 3 hours of your life. I mean, it's like, and I get surprised, and every time I'm listening, it's like I write something else down. And like, oh, I didn't know Pat Hare did this song on Sun Records, and you write it down, or you'll hear like, oh my God, I didn't know about this record Buddy Miles did with Santana, and you'll like write that down. And so I don't deliberately listen to very much. And I should also say, I listen to Little Feat music almost every day.
That's one of the things
I practice it, and I listen to at least one song every day because I'm always listening to live bootlegs, thanks to this community, and everybody who's put this stuff on YouTube, that now it's this public domain of research, and I've been doing it for over 2 years, and I'm still doing that. And every time it is so enjoyable to listen to the stuff. It never feels like homework. It's always like this guy, it's like, I'm so excited about this. I listen to what Richie's doing on the hi-hat on this, or wow, I've never heard Lowell try to play a slide solo on this song. I didn't even know you could. Like, what is he doing? Like, you discover all these idiosyncrasies of the band. They were constantly evolving.
Well, Saul, you has actually probably seen more Little Feat shows than I have, which is hard to imagine, but he has.
101.
Wow. If Saul, maybe from your memory, do you have a show that maybe Scott could look up on archive.org that is particularly something he ought to be listening to?
No. As we all well know, each show is an entity unto itself. You see, it reminds me of the Grateful Dead. You see 4 shows 4 nights in a row. You might hear the same songs, but they'll be done completely differently. And I was going to ask you, did you listen to the first Little Feat album when it came out, or were you too young for that?
I was born in 1976.
Ah, okay.
So,
okay.
I missed that. I like to say I'm a child of Let It Roll. Okay. So when I was 13, I think I was about 13, I grew up with all the records on in the house. Waiting for Columbus was like this bucket list, insane achievement. The band was a total mystery to me. And then I saw them on Arsenio Hall and Saturday Night Live. And shortly after that, I started going with my parents to their shows. My parents were my dad's a musician, they're from the Detroit rock scene. They didn't ever get a chance to see the band with Lowell. They were in Michigan, so I don't think the band played as much in that market as they could have or should have in that era. But my family had moved to Pennsylvania. I have like these 3 or 4 lost years in my bio where I lived in Pennsylvania. It's from like the age of 10 to 14. And still in the Rust Belt, but more East Coasty. So we went to see them in Atlantic City, Philadelphia, and they were hitting this market a lot. So we would drive to see them. Saw them in New York, at the Beacon. We saw them different places. And I probably saw them, I want to say 3 or 4 times on the Let It Roll tour. And I remember the first time I saw them was at a state fair in Pennsylvania. They were opening for George Thorogood.
Saw that tour, yeah.
Probably 1988 or 9 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was so blown away by everything. But I will never forget Richie. I was at home. I had a drum kit set up and a bass amp and a guitar and a 4-track recorder. And I would try to recreate songs. So I would do Little Feat songs, Bad Company songs, Led Zeppelin songs. I was really Stones. I was into classic rock, but I was also listening to like Muddy Waters and Tom Waits. I was already into all that when I was 10, 11, 12. That was the stuff that was around the house. But the stuff I would try to recreate would be like Can't Get Enough of Your Love by Bad Company or Spanish Moon, right? Mm-hmm. So I'd learn the drum part, I'd learn the bass part, the guitar part. And when I saw Richie in particular live, it just really was one of the most profound musicians I've ever seen. And it kind of changed my concept of how a rhythm section can work, because his groove was so deep, but he was so busy. And really the only other guy who achieved that in rock is like John Bonham is the only guy who even got close to that. I think Richie was a huge influence on John, and I think they really admired each other's playing. But that's the only thing I would liken it to see. And I eventually, when I went to an arts high school, my teacher played bass with Elvin Jones, and I got to sit next to Elvin Jones on stage. Very similar energy. A different result, but a very similar energy and approach to those drummers. Richie would be very flattered by that, but it's true. Like, they carried a certain intensity and a certain busyness that never lost the pocket that is, it's almost impossible to balance that.
There are certain musical moments in my life that I will never forget. And it wasn't the first Little Feat album, it was the second one. Put the Needle Down on the second album, Easy to Slip. Red knows this, he plays it for me all the time on his radio show. Easy to Slip, my favorite Little Feat song, maybe my favorite song of all time. There was a sound to that and a feel to that and Lowell's voice, and it just changed my life.
Yeah, I had the same experience with that album. That was actually, Waiting for Columbus was the one I was exposed to the most, and it was the one that had the first impact on me as a musician. But Sailing Shoes was the one that got to my heart.
Yeah. Exactly.
Because of the lyrics to Easy to Slip, Trouble, that version of Willin' with the pedal steel and the tempo, that record was the one where I started to develop a personal identity around the band's music.
Yeah.
And with every band I've fallen in love with, every musical act, I fall in love with them because I develop a personal identity around their sound. And that's what real music fans do. They put their own narrative with the music, and then that's what ties them to it.
Thank you very much. I know we're approaching the end of our time here. Can you give us any thoughts? I got a couple of guitarists I just want to get your quick thoughts on, Scott. But any thoughts on things you've learned from Fred Tackett, memorable moments, some things that you think the fans should know about Fred?
Wow. How much time do we have? Fred was a huge influence on me as a musician before I had the opportunity to meet him, which was, of course, the day Paul passed away of all days, October 2019. So with Fred, first of all, let me go from where I'm at now with him, which is I've had the privilege to play with a pretty awe-inspiring list of guitarists. And coming out of the whole Allman camp, although in Gregg Allman band I was the only guitar player, I was always jamming with different guitar players, and Warren Haynes, Derek Trucks, the list goes on and on. Tommy Talton, just in that family alone. Then here in New York, Jim Weeder and Larry Campbell and guys you may not know like Dan Whittleton or Al Street. I've had some amazing opportunities. But when Fred and I play together with Bill, the three of us all being comping instruments that play set parts, chords, lines, whatever, it's been this incredible thing where we never step on each other's toes. Sonically, part-wise, Fred has the most incredible sensitivity as a musician, and Bill shares this with him, although they have two different approaches. Fred's is perhaps a little bit more minimal. Bill's is maximal, but they both kind of have a similar effect of bringing out the best out of the song and the singer first, and then also having this undercarriage of creativity and originality that makes what the part they're playing something no one else can do. And I could give you examples for both of them of that skill. But with Fred, from guitar player to guitar player, I have learned an incalculable amount of skills from him as an accompanist. And that comes from me standing on stage and singing without playing the guitar and noticing what he does. to playing two guitar parts together and noticing what he does. That's one. Two, Fred is a brilliant songwriter. He's not a good songwriter. He's a brilliant, incredible songwriter. And if he had only written Fool Yourself, I would say that. But when you listen to Be One Now, Honest Man, these are some of the best songs in the catalog. Texas Twister, how about that riff on Texas Twister?
Oh, yeah.
It's one of the great electric guitar riffs of all time.
Cal hammer-ons and pull-offs.
I mean, for me, Texas, that riff, that's right up there with, Wham or Satisfaction or Johnny Be Good. I mean, it's one of the great electric guitar riffs. And he came up with that. When he made up that riff, there was nothing before it to sound like it. It puts me in the mind of, all those great, the riffs of the Kinks or Led Zeppelin, or it's right in there with all those. So, profoundly inspiring human being. He and Patricia have had this marriage through his entire career, and it's going strong. And for me, I've been with my wife for 22 years. He's nothing short of an icon and a role model for me. So my hats are off to him in every regard, and I just feel so blessed to be in a band with him and to be seeing him play his best every night.
Thank you.
And being inspired by him every night.
Thank you. Let me throw just one more name at you. Okay.
Yeah.
Tommy Emmanuel.
I was going to ask about him as well.
Can I do one word?
Sure.
Wizard. And if I had to have two words, it would be, if you want to be more specific, guitar wizard. But he's an incredible man, kind of similar to Fred in that regard, just like an incredible human being, extremely generous, extremely humble to a fault. But that man does things with an acoustic guitar that should be against the law.
I immediately wrote an email to Bill Payne after seeing Tommy join you in Jamaica. And I said, I can't believe maybe the two musical geniuses that I actually used the word genius. To see the two of you playing together on the same stage was a thrill. Yeah. And Bill wrote back very humbly, oh, thank you. Tommy's wonderful and whatever. But it was jaw-dropping. Absolutely jaw-dropping.
Yeah, I think I picked Wizard with Tommy just because he has a specific type of genius, and it is genius. He really found his niche, and he's expanded it to where there are some people. The approach reminds me of people like Leo Kottke, but it's just gone so far in some other Tommy direction that's so brilliant. And I've known Tommy kind of on and off for a number of years. We have mutual friends in Nashville. We had met before. It's kind of interesting, like our manager now manages Tommy, but I had met that manager years back with Tommy and stuff. So it all kind of came, it's like one big family with Tommy and Little Feat is what it comes down to.
And I know we're running at the end of our hour, but I would be remiss if I didn't ask. Kenny mentioned that you're all will be working on a new album at the end of the year.
There already is a new album.
There is. What can you tell us about it? Nothing.
Well,
right?
In terms of the big M, which is material,
yes,
or
exactly.
Songs, we also call them songs. There's a lot of songs. So, and the band's chemistry. I mean, Red, you've seen us a lot on this Waiting for Columbus tour. The band's chemistry is reaching a point of telepathy. So, when you have a bunch of songs and you have a telepathy, the time is overdue to make an album. Guy Clark used to say, I don't remember who asked him for this advice, but a singer-songwriter, I mean, it might have been Steve Earle. I can't remember where I saw this in a documentary, but someone asked Guy Clark, when do I make an album? And Guy would say, when you have 10 songs. So we're way beyond 10 songs, and the band's chemistry is off the charts. So right now we're talking to producers, we're talking to labels. We're trying to find the OPM component, other people's money. And once we have the OPM, then we'll be delivering the album.
Very good. Well, I don't know if the grassroots album movement be able to help you out with the OPM, but we are looking forward to hearing you a recording sometime in the future. So thank you very much.
I guarantee you that this band, as Bill has said with you guys, is going to have a lot to say, and we're going to make a Herculean effort to try to put another studio album in this band's catalog that fits in. So pray for us. And by us, I mean me and Tony.
Oh, you guys sit in beautifully.
Speaking of me and Tony,
beautifully.
When Kenny was on, he mentioned that you and Tony were excited about a Little Feat album you'd never heard before. He said it was something from what Bill calls Act 2, which would be Let It Roll Onward, before you all joined the band. Do you remember what that album was?
Okay, this was like back of the bus listening session time stuff. Yes, wasn't Under the Radar, though I love that.
Chinese work song, something like
that. Shoot. I can't. You know, it's an album. Yes.
Yes. Okay. The Stealth album.
That record is amazing. There is like a Memphis soul track on that. Second or third song.
Okay.
It literally sounds like Little Feat doing a Willie Mitchell production in Memphis. It's so good. There's so many gems on that record.
Yeah,
I was blown away. I never knew it existed. And I'm like way down the rabbit hole with this band. You know, I really hope that this is a pie in the sky fan Scott Sharrard comment. But I would love to see, I don't know what the business dealings were around all these lost records from the 90s or whatever this period was. But I would love to see all these records end up under one umbrella and get remastered and start coming out. And, you know, I really hope that, and this is all bean counter stuff, but, you know, maybe at some point we can get all this stuff under one umbrella and really get it. Because if I don't know it exists and it's a Little Feat thing, there's no fucking way anybody knows it exists. Yeah. I mean, that's so messed up that there's an album that's that good that's buried, you know, that you can only listen to on YouTube. You know, that's crazy.
Well, we do appreciate your time today talking with us, Scott, and of course your passion for the music of Little Feat. We're glad to have you in the fold, and I got to tell you, the comments that I keep hearing about you and Tony and the band is the new energy you've brought to the band, and I want to thank you for that. I know you're the youngest member of the band now, and I know Kenny used to be the youngest. So.
He's got two guys to compete with now. Yes. I think Tony's 52 and I'm 45, so we're hanging on to our baby status. But you know, the wisdom that these guys carry, and you mentioned energy. I'm gonna tell you something, man. The energy is not just coming from Tony and I. In fact, there's nights where these guys are running circles around us.
Oh my!
Well, Bill Payne seems absolutely rejuvenated.
Yeah, it's the whole band. It's perhaps it started with us coming in and doing with Tony's chair. I've always said a band is only as good as its drummer and its singer. So with Tony coming in, getting the tempos, the feels, and the parts locked all the way in, and with me coming in and singing the songs that I do in the original keys, I feel like those two basic technical elements lifted the attention and energy of the entire band. And if there's one thing we're contributing actively, it would be those technical adjustments to the catalog. And I think, to everyone's credit in the band, once those adjustments were made, everyone went, "Oh yeah, muscle memory," and it's 1970, and it's 1974, right? Because I'm there and I'm singing the song. And I'm hearing these guys go all fucking 1974 on my ass. and then my energy goes up because I go, "Oh my God, I'm inside the record." Yeah. And these guys sound as good or better than they ever sounded. So the word is energy, and it's everybody lifting each other up. It's not any one person. That's what a great band does.
Right. And that's just in front being able to be back out in front of a live audience, an audience that is into it. And I know, performing, it's not just what's on stage, it's the feedback you get from the audience. And we are so grateful for what you're doing, Scott. Thank you so much.
And the last note on that is, like, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Craig Fuller and Let It Roll, because that's been an inspiration for me too with going towards making a new album. Is I just thank God that Craig came in the band and did those records, because if he hadn't, I think I'd be too scared to do this.
All right. Well, on that
note, thank you, Craig, for proving it can be done again.
Yes, indeed. And of course, all the people that have contributed to Little Feat. I know Sean Murphy's still doing it in her blues thing, and we're grateful for her time in the band as well.
Sean is incredible, man. Just one of my favorite singers, and I love the work she did with the band. But I mentioned Craig just because he was the first guy who had the balls to step on that stage and sing Lowell George music after Lowell, the first reforming, and that must have been a hell of a tempest to go through, man. I mean, to have to do that, and it's been a bit of a buffer for those of us who've had to come after. I love Craig Fuller. I find his work with the band as a writer and singer is also very inspirational.
Well, of course, that it was helped by the fact that Let It Roll is a great album, and we of course look forward to the Scott Sharrard studio album with Little Feat also being a great album. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you, fellas. I could talk to you guys all day.
You can do it sometime down the road. Thank you very much. So thanks again.
You guys have a good day.
All right, appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.